When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion advised.
They looked at me and both smiled at the same time. They looked at each other and smiled even bigger. The creepiest smiles I've ever seen to this day.
I have no clue how the fuck he got so close to me, or where he came from.
He took way too long to respond to the question. Just kept staring at the ground with a really creepy demeanor.
From Killer Podcasts, true tales of horror, bizarre happenings, unexplainable events. This is Disturbed. Hello, and welcome back to the show. This week, we're bringing you 5 stories that will leave you hiding under the covers. So sit back, listen closely, and dive into the horror. First, a story narrated by Catherine Restivo from Reddit user Mummy24. Camping encounter with teenage Norman Bates.
The story happened in 2004 when my family and I were camping. I was 12 at the time, and my best friend Mackenzie had come along with us. We'd been having a fun and largely uneventful time camping, just as we usually did, until one evening when all of that changed. My mother was in the kitchen common area, while Mackenzie and I were taking showers in the bathroom block next door. The concrete walls of the shower block didn't go all the way down to the ground, and there were gutters taking the water to the drains outside. Our feet were visible to anyone who went behind the shower block. However, since it backed onto a fence, no one really went back there other than the camp's maintenance staff. Well, as we were showering, we could hear this cackling laughter coming from outside the block right behind us. It sounded like a teenage boy. I was confused as to where it was coming from, and I asked Mackenzie if she heard it too. She said yes, and was equally baffled. Then, shockingly, a head appeared from under the gap of the shower walls. This teenage guy was staring right up at me, grinning while I stood naked and terrified in the shower. I let out an almighty scream, jumped out of the shower, and wrapped a towel around myself. I kept screaming until my mother came rushing in, and I managed to explain through my tears what had happened. My mother waited until Mackenzie and I had dressed, then went running back with us to the tent and told my dad what had happened. He told her to inform the camp staff while he grabbed a kayak paddle and went to find that teenage idiot, who unbelievably was still crouched down behind the shower block. We heard the boy screaming, and suddenly he was sprinting past our tent at the speed of light, my dad hot on his heels, waving the paddle menacingly. My dad chased him all the way out of the campgrounds and out of sight. He never returned. Camp management said there had already been a few incidents logged of a young guy looking at girls and women in the shower block. The manager also said it was likely this creep wasn't even staying in the campgrounds, which made it even more terrifying. I don't know why management had done nothing to prevent or even warn us of these incidents, but I'm sure glad my parents were there to handle the situation.
This next story comes from Reddit user Mall Cops Are Bastards and is narrated by Gregory James. Most people knock on the front door.
This happened to me a couple years ago, and I never figured out what the hell was really going on. I was staying with my mom for 2 months over the summer, helping her get settled in her new house after my dad passed. She'd just moved out of my childhood home and into a new suburb. It seemed like a really safe neighborhood, full of normal houses and people who kept to themselves. One night, I was watching TV alone in the living room. My mom had already gone to bed when I heard a knock at the door. Not the front door, the back door. I just sat there for a second, like, did I actually hear that? Who knocks on a back door? The porch light was off, so I couldn't see anything. The knocking didn't start up again. It was just dead quiet. Eventually, I got up and went to check. I flipped the outdoor light on, and I saw a guy standing there on the back patio. He was an average-looking guy, mid-40s, wearing jeans and a gray hoodie. He was just standing there, staring at the ground. I didn't open the door, obviously. I called out to him, can I help you? He took way too long to respond to the question. Just kept staring at the ground with a really creepy demeanor. Finally, he slowly looked up with a blank expression. It seemed like he was trying really hard to look sober. Then he smiled at me and said, "Sorry, man, I think I left my jacket here." I stared at him, then said, "You got the wrong house." Still smiling, he tilted his head, just like a dog does when they hear an unfamiliar sound. He didn't answer, just stood there. After several seconds, which felt like minutes, he finally said, "Oh yeah, okay, my bad." Then he turned around and walked away. I made a huge mistake here by immediately turning off the back patio light. What didn't click in my head right away was that the backyard had one of those old wooden fence gates that creak and latch really loudly. In the middle of the night, I woke up in a sweat, realizing that I'd never heard that gate creak shut. I went to the back door and turned on the kitchen light. I could see that the gate was still closed. I didn't think it was possible for him to shut the gate without me hearing it. I tried to turn on the porch light to see if anyone was out there, but it didn't turn on. I sat in the kitchen until the sun came up, just waiting for something to happen. Then I went outside and checked the porch light. It had been unscrewed just enough so it wouldn't turn on. I told my mom, and we called the cops, who came by to look around. They found that the wood on the front door was chipped right by the deadbolt, as if someone was trying to pry the door open. They also learned from a neighbor that someone had been snooping around the backyard the day before while my mom and I were out shopping. The worst part about this story is that there's no resolution. The man never came back, and nothing weird ever happened again. I was only there temporarily, so I eventually had to leave. She still lives in that house alone.
Our next story is told by Hannah Robertson about an underwear thief.
Back in the early 2000s, my family and I lived in Liverpool, in the northwest of England. Where I'm from has always been notorious for its substance problem, being one of the most deprived areas of the country. I'm the youngest of 4 children, and by the time I was in high school, my siblings were already starting families of their own. It was just me and my mum left at home. She worked as a nurse and was sometimes assigned night shifts, so I was often home alone, apart from neighbours checking in every once in a while. I didn't mind though. While my mum was at work, I'd complete simple household tasks, such as washing laundry and putting it outside on the line to dry. We didn't have a back garden, just the garden in the front of the house. In the summer, I'd leave the front door open so I could go in and out more easily and let some fresh air into the house. This wasn't uncommon in our neighbourhood, as there was plenty of kids running in and out of each other's houses all day. I started noticing some of my clothes going missing off the line, particularly underwear. At first, I just shrugged it off as the wind blowing it away or some kid's idea of a joke. But it started happening every time there was washing out, even when no kids were outside playing. We didn't own a dryer, so there was no other option but to put the clothes outside to dry. More and more items kept going missing. Then more disturbing things started happening. I'd shut the front door and go upstairs, and then return to find it wide open. Sometimes all the washing would be pulled down from the line, with certain items missing altogether. I'd often find hand smudges on the windows that I'd convinced myself I'd caused by opening and closing them. I thought I was just being paranoid, but was still scared and didn't want to be alone, especially at night, as my imagination got the better of me. One day, I explained to my brother the strange things I'd noticed and asked if he could pick me up and take me to his house for the night. The next morning, my brother got a call from my mum asking if I was with him. She demanded I return home to clean up the mess I'd left. My brother came with me so he could explain to her that I was feeling extremely paranoid and anxious. He knew she'd be stressed from a long shift and wouldn't be lenient on me leaving a mess. When we stepped inside the house, I noticed there were dirty footprints through the house, which were definitely too big to be mine or me mum's. Me mum was pacing round the living room in a huff, pointing and shouting about pillows being thrown around and glasses and plates being left lying around unwashed. I had me brother's word to back me up that it had definitely not been left this way when he'd picked me up. She was confused, as who else would have made this mess since I was the last person to be home? Before heading to bed, she asked me to clean up and make sure everything was tidy by the time she woke up. But when she reached the top of the stairs, she started frantically calling me brother's name. Every door upstairs was open and every room had been rifled through. Both mine and me mum's underwear drawers had been flung open and clothes covered the floor. Both beds were untidy, as if someone had slept in them. Cigarette butts had been flicked onto the floor. It was obvious that someone else had been in the house and made themselves at home. My brother sent me mum and me downstairs to phone the police as he checked the rest of the house. He noticed the bathroom light on and saw that whoever had been here had made a cup of tea and ran themselves a bath, which they hadn't drained, and had left a ring around the tub. Resting on the toilet were multiple pairs of me and me mum's underwear, which the intruder had soiled. Disgusted, my brother left the bathroom and waited with us for the police. When the police finally arrived, they told us it was most likely an homeless person or someone on drugs who just wanted a bed to sleep in for the night. Nothing was actually taken, not even the ring me mum had left on a dresser. There was nothing much the authorities could do, other than suggest we always make sure all the windows and doors are locked. After that, I wasn't allowed to stay home alone at night anymore, just in case something similar happened again. Thankfully, nothing ever did, apart from underwear occasionally going missing off the line. I'm still not sure if this was a stalker situation or if the police were right. It was just a coincidence. Either way, it still freaks me right out.
You're listening to Disturbed. We'll be right back.
I'm not a big shopper. I feel mostly comfortable at home. No lights on, peeking through the blinds at my happily married neighbors who are just so annoying. So, when I find a place I can shop that just gets it, like Quince, it's game over. I'm telling everyone I know about Quince so they can get in on the action. Except the Jeffersons. All they're getting is what's coming to them. I ordered a few things for the summer months, and suddenly I've got outfits that just work. No stress, no overthinking, no pacing back and forth for hours, hyper-focusing on the littlest details. Quince has all the things you actually want to wear. The best part? Everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. Elevate your closet with Quince. Go to quince.com/disturbed for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/disturbed to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/disturbed.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit TemptationsTreats.com to learn more.
Hello, Nigel here. I couldn't help noticing that you're still awake. Now, I'm an owl. I'm supposed to be up at night, but you need your sleep. So if it's your allergy symptoms that are keeping you up, here's a word to the wise. Try Xyzal. You see, Xyzal works fast to relieve sneezing, runny nose, itchy watery eyes, and itchy nose and throat. And it keeps going strong for 24 hours, so you can get your sleep and wake up refreshed and ready for a productive day ahead. Be wise, all. Take Xyzal at night. Use as directed. Starts working in 45 minutes.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Welcome back to the podcast. Our next story is narrated by Steve Schuerger. I was the last kid left waiting for my parents at the neighborhood park.
This happened when I was about 12 or 13 years old. I lived in an apartment complex that was 2 sets of rows, and each row had 4 apartments. I lived in the apartment closest to the street of one row and had 2 cousins that lived in the apartment at the end of the row in the back. I hung out with my cousins just about daily. We were very into soccer at the time, and we would walk to a park about 4 or 5 streets away along with some of the neighbor kids and play soccer there. It was a big group, about 15 kids total, and the ages ranged from 10 years old all the way to 17. One of my cousins was the 17-year-olds, which was why my parents allowed me to go without their supervision. On this day, like usual, we made our way to the park, some kids walking, others riding scooters or skateboards. I had my bike that day. We got to the park and started playing soccer. About halfway through our game, my parents drove by and called me from their car. They told me they were going to the store and said I should wait at the park for them. Okay, no big deal. I figured they might want to go somewhere else afterwards. And it was easier to pick me up from the park than for me to wait back at home. Of course, this doesn't make sense because it's only a 4-street distance, but at the time, to my 12-year-old mind, it was perfectly logical. We kept playing for another hour. Then as the sun began to set, more and more kids started making their way back home. When my cousins wanted to leave, they asked me if I was ready, and I said that my parents told me to wait for them here. So they left and I stayed behind. Eventually, I was the only kid left. No big deal. I was familiar with the neighborhood, so I started riding my bike up and down the street, just killing time. At this point, it hadn't occurred to me that if my parents wanted me to wait for them at the park, they wouldn't want me to wait past sunset. Eventually, I got impatient and hungry. I didn't want to get grounded for disobeying my parents, so I kept waiting, except instead of staying at the park, I crossed the street and waited there. After a few minutes, a car drove up and stopped next to me. Nothing scary yet, there was a stop sign there, so I didn't really pay it much mind. As the car drove away, I realized it looked weird. It was old and boxy, like an 80s car. But what really stood out was that it looked spray-painted gray. It was definitely not real car paint or done by a professional. I don't know if someone who stole a car would be dumb enough to draw that much attention to it, or if the look was intentional, but you could tell it was just spray-painted all over. I kept waiting, and at this point, I was getting really annoyed. Then the car came back from the other side of the street. It was hard to ignore, but my survival instincts still hadn't kicked in. I thought maybe the driver was lost or wanted to turn around without doing a U-turn. The park was a big square, so going around it and coming back was easy enough to do. A few minutes went by, and they drove up and, again, stopped at the stop sign right next to me. I was starting to get nervous, so I looked at the car. There were 2 men inside, very scruffy looking, with unkempt beards and hair, dirty faces, and stains on their shirts. They looked at me and both smiled at the same time. They looked at each other and smiled even bigger. The creepiest smiles I've ever seen to this day. Then they drove away. Their smiles creeped me out so much that I was now on high alert. I watched the other side of the park to see if they would come around again. Sure enough, they did. As soon as I saw the car, I jumped on my bike and rode away as fast as I humanly could. I could hear one yelling something, but I don't know what it was. I was too busy pedaling for my life. I could hear the car catching up, but I was too scared to even turn around. I somehow made it to my street and ran into the building, but I didn't want them to see where I lived, since my apartment was visible from the street. So I went to the back, behind my cousin's apartment, and hid there. If it wasn't obvious, this was before cell phones were common. I waited for what felt like a few hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, before I got enough courage to make the short walk down the row of apartments to mine. I tried the door and it was unlocked, so I went inside. My parents were there, sitting on the couch watching TV. They asked me how our game was, completely nonchalantly, and I asked them why they didn't pick me up. They both looked confused and asked me why they would tell me to wait there instead of home when it's only a 4-street difference and I had my bike. They explained that when they drove up to me at the park, they told me they were going to leave the door unlocked for me in case I got home before they did. In my excitement from the game, I must have just completely misheard them. I simply went to my room after that, never telling them about what happened. As a dumb kid, I knew if I said something, they wouldn't let me go play soccer anymore, and that was clearly more important than my physical well-being. I never saw those guys or that car ever again. Looking back now, I realize it doesn't matter how fast I was pedaling my bike. They were in a car and could have caught up if they wanted to. So I don't know what their intentions were, if they were just having a laugh at my expense, if they were trying to scare me, or if they actually had something darker in mind. But I do think back on that day now and get chills every time I realize how different my life would be right now if they had caught me.
Our final story is narrated by Kat Carter from Reddit user Fasty Nilth Shrieky Fit. Somebody's lurking in the orchards, and it ain't Johnny Appleseed.
This is an ongoing situation, and I'm not sure what to do about it. My house sits fairly far back from the road, roughly around 150 feet. Between the entrance to my driveway and my front porch, I have 3 vehicles parked that would obscure the view from anyone walking or driving by. I live in the country, on a side road with no stores or anything nearby. So someone getting lost looking for an address out here is unlikely. Although the road's a couple miles long, there are only 6 houses on it. It's like an agricultural area with wide gaps between neighbors. There are no streetlights. It's literally almost pitch black out here at night. There's really no reason for someone to be on this street at all unless they know someone who lives here. About a week ago, I was babysitting a boy at my house, and his mom came to pick him up around 7 p.m. when it was just starting to get dimmer outside. She and I were chatting outside for a bit when he was finishing a match on Apex. We both heard a noise that sounded like someone trying to stifle a cough. It was coming from the kiwi orchard that borders my house. I just thought it was the kid because lately he's been trying to jump scare me all the time. Stealth is not exactly in his wheelhouse, so he often coughs or laughs when he's setting up to try to get me. That's why I paid exactly 0 attention to the noise and just kept conversing with his mom. A couple minutes later, he came flying out of my front door, and they left. I didn't even realize until later that was weird. If he was still inside the house, then who the fuck was coughing in the orchard? At the time, it just didn't even register. Later that night, between midnight and 1 a.m., I was sitting outside on my front porch, smoking, with my back to the road. My lighter was dead, so I had lit my cigarette on the stove inside the house and then run outside with it. I had no porch lights on, and my phone was on the dimmest screen setting because I didn't want to entice the mosquitoes. About halfway through my cigarette, a man spoke up from somewhere near me and asked for a smoke. It surprised me so much that I just froze. I literally thought an ad had popped up in a background tab on my phone or something. Then he said it again, so I turned around, and he was right behind me. This dude was tall, like really tall. Somewhere between 6'3" and 6'6". He had a beard and long hair and was barefoot. He wore pants, but no shirt, and had on a long-ass coat or robe. It was kind of hard to tell in the dark, even with my phone flashlight. And he was, 5 or 6 feet away from me, at the most. Like, in 2 steps, he could have had his hands on me. I didn't know what to do or say. My heart was pounding. I pulled out my pack, and when he started to step forward, I said, "No, stop. You don't need to do that. Here." And I just tossed him the whole thing. When I told him to stop, he did, putting his hands up to chest height, palms out. He said, "That was a good idea to toss it," and just stood there for a second. I literally didn't know what to say, but before I had the chance to speak, this weird motherfucker walked backwards toward the road until I could no longer see him. I didn't hear footsteps after that, so I didn't know if he kept walking or just stopped. I have no clue how the fuck he got so close to me, or where he came from, or how he even knew I was smoking unless he was nearby enough to smell it, because it's not like he heard me light it. I lit it inside. I've heard noises around my house every single night since. Not right next to my house where my cameras would catch him, but in the neighboring orchard. Too close for comfort. I'm not sure what to do. I asked the sheriff to patrol out here if they could, but they're almost never out this way. I can't exactly report him if I don't know where he is or if he's even doing anything to be reported for. It creeped me the fuck out, and I have a weird feeling about the dude, but I don't know what I can really do about it.
Want more Disturbed? Check out our Patreon for member-exclusive content, early merch access, and other cool perks. I'm your host, Doug Bailey, and this has been Disturbed, a production of Killer Podcasts and part of the Evergreen Network. For more paranormal and true crime shows, visit killerpodcasts.com. Follow our social channels at Disturbed Podcast on Instagram or Disturbed_pod on Twitter. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and reviewing on your favorite listening platform. Share your own true horror story at DisturbedPodcast.com. Music by Epidemic Sound and by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Our producer is Elizabeth Flood. Our audio engineers are Nathan Corson and Will Pritz. Executive producers Bridget Korn and Noah Fouts. Until next time, stay safe out there.